So you all may remember that in my video on my first thoughts of Frozen that I posted up a week or so ago, I said that I would do a video review on Wreck-It Ralph when that came out on Blu-ray and DVD. The main reason being is that I didn't get around to reviewing it when it first came out in theaters back in November, and on both the Disney Renaissance video and in my inbox section, I got quite a couple of requests saying, what did you think of Ralph? Would you do a video review of Wreck-It Ralph? Well, my copy just came in the mail literally about an hour ago. That's when I just picked it up. So I think now's as good of a time as any to look over it, give it the views I probably should have back in November. Now, I actually have quite a bit to say about this movie, so I'm just going to leave the introduction at that and go right into the story. So, this film centers around an arcade game villain named Wreck-It Ralph. He's voiced by John C. Reilly. Now, the arcade game that he's a part of is called Fix-It Felix Jr. It's sort of like this Donkey Kong-esque game in which he's fighting his Mario-esque rival, Felix, voiced by Jack McBrayer. Now, at the start of the film, we learn that Ralph has been doing this, being the antagonist of the game, for 30 years, and he's starting to have feelings that he doesn't really want to be the bad guy anymore, but for the most part, he is calm and selective about it and keeps it to himself. That is until at a 30th anniversary party of the game that he's not even invited to, one of the other game characters goes a little bit too far with insulting him, and Ralph kind of loses it. But at the same time, that same character also says if Ralph were to win a medal, which apparently arcade video game characters do in this world to make them heroes, then Ralph can indeed be treated as a human, be treated as a hero, and even live in the penthouse that is a main part of this game. Ralph is living out in the dump a little bit away from this. I didn't mention that. So, Ralph says, okay, this is finally a way to get the respect I want. So, actually, he goes and wins a medal very quickly. I honestly thought that would be the central point of the game, but it's not. So, he wins the medal, but unfortunately, when he's trying to get back to Fix-It Felix Jr., he accidentally gets caught in another game called Sugar Rush, where he loses the medal to a little girl named Vanellope von Schweetz, who's voiced by Sarah Silverman. Now, Vanellope believes this medal will help her get the respect she needs as well, but when things don't go her way, she ends up teaming up with Ralph, and they both are trying to find ways for Ralph to get his medal and Vanellope to get it to race in this game, ultimately to give them the respect they deserve, and the movie sort of follows that point until we also see there might be more lurking in this arcade world than we initially thought, and all that unveils throughout the course of the plot. Now, let me start by saying that when I first heard about this movie, I think it was in late 2011 when I was looking over Disney's lineup, I just read a brief little plot synopsis and saw the poster, and I said to myself, really, Disney? This is the best you've got? This doesn't seem like your material. I mean, I love John C. Reilly in movies like Chicago and whatnot, but as a Disney character, personally, I just thought it wouldn't fall through, especially seeing as how Cars 2 met my expectations only a few months before then. But, luckily, I was 100% wrong about this movie. Okay, well actually, let me amend on that. 90 to 95% wrong, because this movie was not without flaws, but we'll get to them in a moment. Let's start with the good stuff. In fact, let's start with what I personally think was the best thing about this movie, the arcade world that it created. I was entranced in all of the settings from the first moment I started this, because I loved, as I said, the sort of Donkey Kong style-esque video game setting that Fix-It Felix takes place in, and I really enjoyed the sort of Halo meets Lost Planet look that Hero's Duty, the game that Ralph travels to win the medal, looks like. I grew up playing arcade games. I didn't get actual video games like Zelda and whatnot till very late in elementary school. So seeing these and seeing a lot of cameos from the other arcade characters was great. And I just love the detail they put into these worlds. But by far, the best world was what they did with Sugar Rush. Now, if you want an idea of what Sugar Rush kind of is, I'm going to borrow the exact quote I said to my sister when she and I saw this in theaters for her birthday. I literally turned to her and thinking to myself, my God, it's like Mario Kart and Candyland combined their evil forces together. And that's literally what this game is, but oh my God, the creativity and ingenuity that was put into this is... it's undescribable, because we've got like this entire mountain range made of ice cream cones. We have one part is just this proceeding spiral made out of a cake. Like there's a volcano but instead of lava, it's boiling hot Coca-Cola and there are Mentos on the top that fall in and make eruptions. And wow, honestly, I think some of the ideas and again, the creativity make this movie worth seeing more than once, just so you can see things that you didn't see before, and I love it when a movie does that. Now, the downside of this is, at times, it does lead to some pretty meh candy puns. Like, there were times when the characters would say things like, "Milk my duds," and "Sweet mother of monkey milk, I did it!" And that... yeah, that was a bit annoying at times. I guess maybe it was a little bit more for the kids, but yeah, that's more of a nitpick for me personally, mainly because for every meh candy pun in here, they actually have some really good ones. Like, there was one part in this had me laughing when I first saw the film. There's this sort of castle that the ruler of Sugar Rush, King Candy, voiced by Alan Tudyk, can't believe I didn't even notice him when I first saw this, but... okay, so the castle is guarded by these Oreo guards, and they're doing the sort of Wizard of Oz march, only instead of saying, "Oreo, Wee-o," these guards are literally marching while they chant, get ready for this, "Oreo, Oreo, Oreo, Oreo." That alone got a really good laugh from me, and quite frankly, I don't think I'll ever be able to watch The Wizard of Oz the same way now that I've seen it. But it's just stuff like that that really make this world a wonder to see. I'd even say a treat. And it's just great, even if at times the candy puns can get a bit annoying. But the look of a film can only take it so far, and surprisingly, this movie actually does have a lot of substance as well. The main heart of this movie is the relationship between Ralph and Vanellope, because we can understand the way these two come to be friends, really. At first, they don't like each other. In fact, I'd willingly say they both really hate each other. But they do have one thing in common, and that is the fact that they would do anything to get the respect they deserve, even if it means, in this case, getting their games shut down permanently. And quite frankly, I think that's really easy to relate to with these two, because let's face it, we've all had things we would have gone to the ends of the earth to get accomplished, and nothing could stop us. And for that, I really like the way they did that, and Ralph and Vanellope, or better, Riley and Silverman, that's what I'm thinking, really bring that essence to these two characters. And the other characters are a lot of fun too. Felix is the typical nice guy you'd see in games, trying to do something, trying to help out, but he's just too nice to raise his voice at times. Jane Lynch, I don't think I even mentioned her, as the sergeant in Hero's Duty is great. I love this character. And I really enjoyed the character of King Candy, since especially what they do with him, but I won't say any more than that, since it kind of goes into something I'm just about to bring up right here. So, yeah, pretty much you have a really great world, a good look to it, characters you can identify. Why am I only 90 to 95% wrong from my original view? Well, there's only one problem I actually had with Wreck-It Ralph. Unfortunately, though, it's a bit of a big one, and that's the story. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't think it was bad. I don't think it was horrible at all, but I just remember, again, after I saw this in theaters, I actually turned to my sister and we almost both said in unison, is it me or did that movie have too much story in it? What do I mean by that? Well, there's a lot of stuff going on, particularly in the second act of this. Okay, I told you about Ralph and Vanellope wanting to go win the race, get his medal, and be respected. But you also have the sergeant and Felix have to go because I'm sorry, I'm stuttering today. It's still early. Sergeant and Felix have to go into Sugar Rush as well because Ralph accidentally brought a cybernetic bug called a Cybug, really clever, and these bugs are like a virus, and if it hatches, it's going to take over the arcade game, but at the same time, we have to have a story about Felix and the Sergeant falling in love because the Sergeant, as we find out, lost her husband before the events of the game. Oh, and did I also mention there might be a conspiracy going on as to why Vanellope can't race, and it's really quite a lot to fathom because you're kind of cutting back to all these stories and you're like, okay, what's the main story here? At times, yeah, that can be distracting. And let me also amend on what I said with the sergeant's dead husband. One other problem, it kind of goes into the story, for me personally, was the way they handled the exposition in this movie. It felt like at times they're just leading up to it and it's really obvious we're going to get it. Like, there is a part about in the second third of this movie that's leading up to the backstory of one of the characters. I won't reveal which one it is. And while I did really enjoy what they did with it, I just felt it could have been integrated into the story a little bit better. And it did kind of hold me back from it. Now, I would take off a full star from the rating because of this, if not for one other thing. The climax. Yes, there's a lot of stuff going on in this movie, but when it all comes together, it's almost as breathtaking as the world of Sugar Rush that it takes place in, because the Cybugs, the backstories, Ralph and Vanellope, the race, it all comes together and it's great. It's visually exciting, it's got you on the edge of your seat, and we even have a really good plot twist in this movie. And it's not one of those that just come right the hell out of nowhere. It's one that you probably should have seen coming, but you don't anyway. And I really like it when a story does that. I don't think we see that many plot twists. And yeah, the climax is what makes you almost forget that there was a lot of story going on. When you can sum up things like that, I really think it's helpful. And for me personally, that's what sold me out in the end. Alright, so I pretty much said everything about this movie. What's my final verdict? Alright, well, going back to the whole 90-95% thing, it isn't a perfect film. It does have some story flaws, going back and forth can be distracting, but personally, the look, the imagination, the characters, and all around the creativity, if I haven't said that already about this movie, is what brings it through. I love seeing these new worlds the Disney animators could make. I love seeing the nostalgic characters, like we saw Bowser and M. Bison and Zangief. I didn't even bring up all of those. They're great in this. And I just, again, it all meshes together for a really great product. Personally, I really enjoyed my trip to Litbox Arcade, and I would not be skeptical at all about a second trip to it. So, 4.5 stars out of 5 for Wreck-It Ralph. You can find all my movie reviews on my YouTube channel. If you have a movie you'd like me to review, comment on this one or on my channel as a whole. And until next time, peace.
now I've got to